right, welcome to today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader, where we dive deep on all things leader related to leading yourself and leading others. I am John Laurito, your host, and I am thrilled to have David Duvall on our show here today. David, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Big fan of the show and excited to participate.
Well, thanks, man. I'm a big fan of yours. And for the audience, I met David through, and really just chance, I had been, when I moved here to Holly Springs, I had been in the market for a desk, and I wanted to get one custom made, and came across David's company. And I got to tell you, and I'm going to take pictures of this so the audience that's watching can see the pictures. David and his team made the most unbelievable custom desk out of a piece of pecan, and it is truly gorgeous. You'll see when you look at the pictures. So you and I got to talking. I was thrilled with what you did, and I loved hearing about your business, and I thought, wow, you'd be a great guest on this show. So again, thanks for joining.
Yeah, awesome. Glad you love the desk, and I'll convince you to get a dining room table at some point.
Well, I'm sure this is not my last purchase. This is a first of many, so that's dangerous for me because I can get into the buying mode quickly. But hey, there's so much I'd love to talk to you about. And why don't we start with Duvall and Company? I mean, you've got a really cool, interesting story about how you got into this. It's a really unique business, and I had searched for so long, and I didn't find many people that did what you did, and certainly not at the caliber of what you did. So how did this whole thing start?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Well, it all started about 10 years ago. Probably more information than you're asking, but it started with, I've always done carpentry through high school. My great grandfather was a furniture builder. Even after college, I was still building stuff for my own home. And a number of years back, after my now 9-year-old daughter was born, we discovered when she was 2 months old that she was visually impaired. It was obviously a very tough situation. And at the time, my wife and I were both working, both working in biotechnology. My wife was a pharmaceutical sales rep, making good income. And then when we found out what happened with our daughter and that she was visually impaired, my wife said, literally at the drop of a hat, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm done working. I quit. Literally without any notice. She's like, I'm not sending our daughter to preschool or to daycare. I'm staying home with her, which was a very brave move on her part. She had, she's worked so hard, just, creating this career in pharmaceuticals, to just give it up and say, that's it. I'm a mom. That's the most important thing. But when she did that it was a massive pay cut for us to lose an income like that. And so we were looking for additional ways to make income. We knew that I had always worked in carpentry and built furniture for our own home. And so my wife said, listen, why don't you just put an ad on Craigslist, build dining room tables during the evenings in the garage, and sell those, and that'll be a little extra income. So that's how Duvall and Company started. We always refer to ourselves as sort of accidental entrepreneurs. We never really intended to start a business or a company. I was just thinking making a couple of extra bucks here and there. But within a very short time frame, we realized there was just a really high demand for people that didn't want to go to, the big box retailers, the Pottery Barns of the store, the Restoration Hardwares of the world. And so within a couple of years, we, next thing you know, had a big social media fan base. We work now on about a 6-month waiting list for furniture pieces. We've got a 4,000 square foot shop, 4 full-time employees, in-house designer. And now we've even been featured on HGTV multiple times, working with the Property Brothers and Hillary Farr, who's the main designer on Love It or List It. We're actually building a table for her personal home. So
wow,
it kind of grew out of control, unexpected.
Well, I first of all, I love that story, and what a really cool start to it. You're out of your garage. You start with, the first piece of furniture was a dining room table?
Yeah, it was just a simple farmhouse dining room table.
And it was on Craigslist? Is that how you sold it? Yeah.
Yeah, we just put it on Craigslist, and next thing you know, just started getting calls every day. But it was, I tell you, it was, I think what was most fun about it was that it allowed us to do other things that we were passionate about. Our very first year, considering the reason we started it was because of what had happened with our daughter. We said, you know what, we're doing okay. We're financially in a good spot. Let's use this to support things that are important to us. So it gave us an opportunity to do a charitable component to Duvall Company, and every single year now, we donate a portion of our profits and our revenues to different charities. The very first one being the School for the Blind in Raleigh. We worked very, very closely with them, with our daughter. And it's just grown from then. We'll ask our customers and our clients, hey, what's near and dear to your heart? And everything from the Frankie Lemon Foundation to the Pretty in Pink Foundation, which helps women with breast cancer who can't afford treatment. Most recently, we gave a good bit of money to the local soup kitchen, the pantry, to help people who couldn't afford food. So it's allowed us to not only make a good living for ourselves, but support some charities that are important to us.
That's amazing. And that's not number one. It's got to feel great to be able to do that. But it sounds like you did it. A lot of businesses, especially growing businesses, are not necessarily in the financial position to necessarily do that early in those first few years. So that's tremendous that you did it. That's obviously very important to you, and to take the input from your clients, your customers too. That says a lot. I mean, that's got to give them a great feeling too about your organization, and even extra impact that they have.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I think I hope people find out about it and let us know. We always ask our clients, is there a charity that you like? We like I said, we're always looking for good charities that we feel like have a good mission and are helping people. And we're fortunate that we're in a situation to be able to do that.
That's great. Well, so let's talk about the business. So you grew obviously over these last 10 years. And I'd love to ask you a bunch of questions that are interesting just about any business going through that type of growth in those early years. And you and I were talking about the fact that there's a lot of craftsmen, there's a lot of people in all kinds of industries that are really great at creating a product or a service, and you see this a lot of times, they ultimately don't succeed because they don't have the entrepreneurial skills, they don't have the leadership skills. What does that mean to you? What were some of the things that you feel that really have contributed to the growth, and not just the quality of what you do, but what did you have to do from an entrepreneurial standpoint?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say, I think one of the first things I did was I made a lot of mistakes, and fortunately, none of the mistakes were so detrimental that it led to the demise of the company. But you learn from absolutely everything you do. And my wife to this day still makes fun of me. We were trying to figure out, well, how can we get the word out there? How can we have more people find out about Duvall and Company? And I was traveling a lot at the time, always on airplanes, always flipping through magazines. And I said, that's it. We need to advertise in, the Delta Airlines magazine, because those people have money and they fly and they're going to buy furniture. And what never occurred to me is, number one, print has never done a lot for the furniture business as far as print marketing. Number two, those people are from all over the place. And we were at the time a small, little company in North Carolina. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do if somebody in Oregon or Idaho or California buys a table? How in the world am I going to get it there? And then just the pure cost of it. I mean, we were a company that was at the time probably only doing 100,000 in sales every year. And I think the airline wanted something close to $15,000 or $20,000 to put in their airline magazine.
Wow.
Fortunately, my wife talked some sense into me and said, you're absolutely out of your mind if you think people are going to shop for a dining room table while they're sitting on an airplane. It was a good point, but you didn't do that. We did not do it. My wife talked some sense into me.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I think that impacted our company and sort of the direction that we go was read a book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Great book about entrepreneurialism. And, the one thing he talks about in that book is that just by understanding the product that is made by a company, people often think they understand the company that makes the product. And that's inherently wrong. The example he uses in the book is about a girl named Sally who absolutely loves making pies. And all of her friends said, wow, you should open a pie business. And he points out that therein lies the problem. Sally's friends lied to her. If you want to make the best pies, then go work for a company that makes pies. If you want to be an entrepreneur, then you got to figure out how to make a successful company. And I think reading that book a few years ago is where the switch kind of went on for me, that I realized Duvall and Company is not really about making the most amazing custom furniture. We are, but really as the owner and as the entrepreneur, my goal is really just to make an amazing company, to work very closely with my clients and make sure they're happy, to work very closely with my employees and lead them in a way and train them in a way that they want to grow in the organization and they want to be successful. And if we do all of that well, then the end product, being the pecan desk or an amazing dining room table, sort of comes along with it. An amazing product comes from an amazing company, and that is what I've learned through this process.
That's amazing. I love that quote. Make an amazing company. And there's so many organizations that you're right. They're focused so much on the product and not thinking, because there's a lot of things that small business owners deal with. Okay, how do I scale this business? How do I know when to bring people in, and what people do I bring in, and what am I going to have them do? And they forget about building the right culture. That's one of those things that attracts top people to your organization, and also drives the engine, makes the engine run. When you think about a culture of your organization and what's important to you about that culture, what does it look like or feel like?
It's a culture of it's inclusivity. It's I think it's a very open environment, especially in the shop. It's sort of funny that I always considered myself to be such a good carpenter and such a good craftsman. And having owned this company for years now, I have met guys and hired guys, and I realized I'm not as good as I thought I was. So then I needed to start looking more in depth of saying, okay, well, what am I good at? And where are my deficiencies? And where can I bring people on in that can compensate for the things that I'm not good at? And I have been fortunate that I have really just met some amazing craftsmen, and I make sure that they understand, listen, yes, my wife and I own this business, we run this business, but it's not going to be successful if it's not the best product. It is my job to make the company amazing. It is your job to make sure that what we are putting out is amazing. And my guys know if there is a tool that will make the product better, if there is a process change that will make the product better, if there's something we can do differently that will make our clients happier and more pleased with the product, that we have, it's an open policy. You come to us and you talk about, hey, here's what we can do. Here's what's going to make us better as a company. Here's what's going to make our product better. Let me know and we'll do it. Every company goes through situations where people will come in and people will leave. And we had a gentleman years ago that ended up leaving the company, and it was a shame because he would complain, well, we don't have this tool and we don't have that tool. And another person in the company said, why do you always complain about what we don't have? If we don't have it and we need it, then go to David and tell him this is what we need and we don't have. If it makes sense, he's never said no. And it led to, I think it reflected more on that individual. It led to him no longer being with the organization. And the person that replaced him came in and says, okay, here's what he said we need. We need this. And I said, perfect. Let's get it. If it makes the product better and the company better, let's do it.
And that's so important. I respect that so much in companies where they're really tapping into the brain power of the people that are in that organization. You know, what I hear you describing is you've built an environment, a culture that is very open, that people have ownership. So it's not, you know, they feel like they've got a part of the company, whether they, you know, physically or literally do or not. They still feel this sense of, okay, if there's something I can do or an idea that's going to make the company better, I'm going to say it. And that's what you've consciously built. And it sounds like you've talked about it. You've said, hey, here's what I want, which a lot of leaders, they forget the importance of talking about, hey, here's what I want to see. Here's the environment. Here's when I know this place is really humming when we have this type of stuff happening, and then catching people doing something right and rewarding them on that. So it sounds like you've done that, and that's the culture is just naturally now, you know, people giving ideas and thoughts.
It definitely is. I would say it's a lot of it has come from my wife who owns the company with me, and you know, she constantly reminds me if I'm maybe not being the leader that I want to be or that I think myself to be. You know, she'll point it out. She'll say, hey, listen, you know, when's the last time you grabbed a case of beer and stopped at the shop at 5 o'clock on a Friday when the guys are cleaning up and just sat down with them and had a beer and talked about how the company is going. And how the projects are going. That's the one thing that I think I do that the guys at our shop appreciate is the fact that I'm sort of an open book with them. They know how we're doing. They know what projects are coming up. They know if we come up with a new idea of a different vertical where we could possibly diversify the company and move into another area of furniture or sales or supplying, I talk to them about it and say, well, what are your thoughts on this? Is this something where you could see this being successful? And I think they appreciate it. I think companies that don't succeed are the kind of companies that you walk into, and if you pull somebody aside and you say, well, hey, how does this happen in this company? And they say, I don't know. The boss does that, or the owner does that.
Not my job. Yeah, right.
Not my job. That's the kind of company that I think is destined to fail. And I hope that that's not Duvall and Company. I hope that you can walk in and ask a question of how does this happen or who does this, and they'll always have an answer of knowing who does what and how things get from point A to point B.
Yeah. So I love that. You know, you're talking about transparency and inclusivity. I mean, you're letting them into the tent, so to speak, and hey, here's how this company works and operates, and here's how we're doing. And there may be some listeners that are saying, okay, well, that's sounds manageable for a smaller size company, but I'm running a larger one or a division. What's great about you is, which we haven't talked about, but I'd love to, is you have two roles. You know, obviously you've built along with Danny, and I want to talk about your partnership as well too. So I want to come back to that. But you know, you've built that, but you're also you are the area director and commercial lead for Hologic, which is a biotech firm, and you lead a very large organization in that. Why don't you just tell the listeners a little bit about that role, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on, are you as transparent in that role? Or, I mean, are you bringing that big of a team into the tent, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, it's funny. It's people often find it a little odd. It's certainly kind of dichotomous between working in science and biotech and then, you know, working as a carpenter. They're very different roles. But yeah, what I've realized is that all business, I think, in general, is small business. Whether it's you know, an antique store on, you know, Main Street in small town America, or it's a, you know, multi-billion-dollar biotech firm. It's really all about individual relationships, and with not just with your clients, but with your employees, with your executive teams. It's all about making these small connections with people that makes the business go around. Now, yeah, in my biotech life, it's, you know, my team's a little bit larger, around 30 people that come up through that operate through my part of the organization. And yeah, it is a very inclusive way of leadership there as well. It's a different business, but everybody's going to have input on how things are done, and things that would make us more successful. It's the same in the furniture world with my craftsmen and my carpenters saying, hey, this is going to make our product better. And it's the same thing in the biotech world of what can we do to be more successful, to be a better partner with our medical practices that we work with, and ultimately, how can we, succeed together?
Mm-hmm. I love that. And so in that, what's the biggest leadership challenge or difference, I guess, with an organization like that, like Hologic and with Duvall and Company? I mean, are there different kind of leadership skills that you've had to really develop in order to lead one versus the other?
Yeah, sure. I'm fortunate that in my career, I have been surrounded by some pretty amazing leaders. And I've been able to learn from them and pull from their skill sets. I've also had some people that I would probably say were not the best leaders, and I've learned from them as well of approaches and things I want to avoid. There's always going to be some differences when you're dealing with a large publicly traded company, as far as transparency. How transparent can you be? When you're talking and looking at things with acquisitions of other biotech companies. There's only so much you can share with people at different levels of the organization. But generally speaking, yeah, I can't say people skill wise, there's a lot of differences. Mm-hmm. It's the people skills exist in every business, and whether it's furniture or biotech, you've got to be able to have a one-on-one conversation. I think of it as, you probably heard the saying that every decision is an emotional decision. People decide emotionally and they justify logically. And I had a boss years ago, it was funny, in biotech, that he was the perfect example. Every couple of years, he would buy a brand new Range Rover, this $120,000 car. Totally an emotional decision, obviously. Not that there's not good logical reasons, but I've yet to find one. So, one day I said to him, his name was Steve. I said, Steve, I gotta wonder, like, why is it that you every 2 years are dropping $120,000 on a brand new Range Rover? And he lives in Texas, and he says, well, David, you don't get it. He's like, first off, I've got 2 kids, 2 dogs, and a wife. And every time we go to our house up in Vail, I've got to get everybody into the car. We've got to get to Vail. And when you get up there, there is nothing that's going to plow through 3 feet of snow like a Range Rover. And I said, okay, yeah, except maybe like a Jeep Cherokee or something like that. But the point is, he took this emotional purchase of this $120,000 car, and he can now logically justify why he has to have this car.
Yeah. Right.
And I've discovered it's like that with everything. Every decision that we make, and whether it's in biotech, with the people that report to me, whether it's people that I'm trying to, lead laterally or even leading, from above, every decision is going to be an emotional decision. And we're all going to justify logically why we make those decisions. Mm-hmm. So it's really about finding, okay, well, where's this person coming from? What is their emotional draw or their emotional connection to make the decisions that they make? Yeah. I've got a guy that I work with in biotech that he was telling me he and his wife took these tests on how empathetic they were. His wife is a registered nurse, and as expected, she ranked off the charts, like one of the most empathetic people in the world. Obviously, she has to be. I mean, she's obviously sacrifices of herself being a nurse. Right. And the guy that I work with, I joke that he was so low on the scale. I'm like, I don't know if they can give you an asshole rating, but they basically said, you're an asshole. We joked about it, and he said to me, he goes, you strike me as a very empathetic person. And I said, well, everybody kind of goes through stages in life. They what happens to them throughout their life makes them who they are. And had I taken an empathy test, 15 years ago, I probably would have been one of the biggest jerks on the planet. But over 15 years of just everything that happens in life, having kids, having a child with a disability, watching my parents get older. My dad has Parkinson's disease, so I help care for him. But all of that has sort of changed my outlook on life, and realize everybody deals with different things in life. Everybody deals with different situations. And far be it for me to judge, someone on their worst day, because you just never know what's happening in their lives. And that sort of background, I think, and viewpoint with how I sort of view the world doesn't change, whether it's in furniture building, whether it's in biotech, or whether it's just in my personal life every day.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, the perspective I have, I get a chance to work with leaders in all different industries. And I've worked with and seen some of the best. And like you, I've seen and worked with very poor ones, terrible ones. And the one of the very common, consistent traits in the top leaders is empathy, for sure. I mean, and I see that I see it shows up differently in different businesses and whatnot, but inevitably, and even the people that I ask, hey, who was the most influential person in your life? When they describe them, there's a level of empathy that person had. And so especially in the times that we're in and we've gone through recently, people are drawn to those leaders that really are empathetic and understand other people's perspectives and want to understand other people's thoughts and emotions and what's going on and, what's happening in your world, and can really appreciate that. So,
I've one of my favorite questions when I'm interviewing candidates for either role is, obviously you're going to have the questions of, describe this situation and how did you handle it? And, what was the actions you took and the eventual result? But I always want to just sort of get to know who they are as people. And so the one question I always ask them is, John, in your case, I'd say, well, John, what makes John Laurito specifically John Laurito? Like, what is it in your life that has brought you to where you are now? Is it, everything that happens in life makes you who you are. And I love to learn that about people when I'm interviewing them, just to see, number one, I want to hear their stories. I want to know about them and hear sort of what makes them tick and what's made them who they are. And also I just kind of want to see, are they going to be real? Are they going to be honest? Or are they going to tell me about their, professional accolades? Oh, I won this President's Club award and this Circle of Excellence trip, and that makes me who I am. And if that's the case, then I actually find that sad.
Yeah, exactly.
That someone would hang their hat on that.
Yeah.
But I've heard some just amazing stories. Interviewing people about just, their upbringings and, their parents being entrepreneurs and seeing, they were first generation Americans and watching their parents struggle, or I've just heard some absolutely amazing stories.
Yeah.
And that's usually one of my biggest keys when I hire people is, who are they? Like, what motivates them? Who are they? What kind of person are they?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's how you learn that, is by asking.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's so much there. And I'm thinking when you're telling me, you also look for those answers that are kind of the canned answers, that there's so many people, especially in an interview situation, that they're not being authentic. And whether it's just that situation or in general, they're not very authentic people. But let me ask you what might be a tough question. I don't know. But what do you consider to be your mission, your purpose as a leader or as a person?
Yeah, I think more than anything, my mission as a person is just to make sure I raise happy children. I've got, my wife and I have 4 kids, and they're the most important thing in my life is making sure that they grow up and they're safe and they're happy and that they have opportunities, and that they understand that they can do whatever they want. That mom and I are accepting of them, and we'll do, if they have a dream and they want to achieve it, we'll do what we can do to make sure that they're, heading down the right path to doing that. Mm-hmm. Professionally, I think more than anything, my goal is to be strategic when I look at an organization. It's important for me to understand what an organization wants to achieve. I was having a conversation with one of our executives the other day, and I said, I feel like we really need a sort of a North Star by which all of our decisions are judged. If your North Star is, in the biotech world of, well, we want our patients to ask for this diagnostic test, to be run on this patient. Then if that's your North Star, everything you do should be measured against that. There's so many people I see that are in the corporate world that are afraid of the brutal truth. They'll say, well, I've got this great idea, this marketing idea, and it's only going to cost us a couple $1 million to do it. And everybody wants to say, yeah, that's a good idea, but everybody in the room knows it's an awful idea, and everybody's afraid to say it. And I think the brutal truth sometimes it's so important to get that out there and say, hey, listen, I appreciate the idea. I'm glad you shared it, but let's put that up against our measuring stick. Mm-hmm. This is our North Star. Is that initiative going to impact what our ultimate mission, what our ultimate goal is? And if the answer is no, then you move away from it. And I think that's one thing I've been able to do in the corporate environment. It's just to sort of refocus an organization and sort of look out at different things. A great example of that was when the pandemic struck. We have salespeople in our organization that all of a sudden said, I can't work. Biotech companies were laying salespeople off left and right. They said, I can't get in to see offices, or, we're talking about oncology offices, and these patients have cancer. And they said the last thing they want is somebody walking into an oncology office in the middle of a pandemic. Mm-hmm. Offices were pretty much shut down. And I think what I was most proud of is that we looked at the situation, we stepped back, and we very quickly pivoted and said, well, how can we do our business differently? How can we provide support to these doctors? How can we let them know what tools they have available in a safe environment? And, it's funny that you and I are talking over Zoom. A year and a half ago, when this all first happened, my organization was probably one of the first that immediately pivoted and switched to Zoom interactions. We started hosting dinner programs at night, and we looked for ways of, well, how can we not only help these doctors and these providers by giving information, how can we also help small business that's struggling? And so we said, what we're going to do? We're going to talk to these doctors, and we're going to say, hey, pick your favorite local restaurant. What's a restaurant that you love? What's a restaurant that you feel is struggling? Give us their information. Do us a favor. Call and order food. Have it sent to your home. We'll take care of the bill. Hop on Zoom at 6:30. We can have a good meal. You can support a small business there in your town, and we can have a nice clinical discussion and make sure that you have all the information you need so that you are making the smartest medical decisions to treat your patients. What started as an idea that we thought, maybe somebody might do this, turned into an idea where we ended up speaking in the first couple of months of the pandemic, probably spoke to over 1,000 doctors across the country.
Wow.
When they realized, wait a second, I can do this. They didn't even really know what Zoom was. We were having to teach them. Of course, now they have Zoom fatigue. Everybody's trying to get off of it. But back then they didn't even know what it was. And we were teaching them how to use it. And we shifted and pivoted. And I think what I was most proud of is in that process, as a biotech company, when most biotech companies were laying people off left and right because of the pandemic, we did not lose a single person. We kept every single one of our people employed. Wow. And actually had a banner year. Broke every sales record that we'd ever set in the middle of a pandemic.
Wow, that's incredible, man. That is tremendous leadership. And that's what it's about. It's about looking at the situation. It's leadership, adaptability, and versatility, and understanding the changing world around you and being able and willing to pivot, and not just as a leader, but to take your whole organization in that direction. And that's tough. I mean, you think about it, there were so many businesses and business owners and entrepreneurs and leaders that just froze. And some of them even said that, hey, we're not going to do anything we're not going to make any decisions until the dust settles and we figure this whole pandemic thing. And then before you know it, they were struggling or out of business. And, so part of leadership is knowing time is of the essence. You've got certain things that may look like a disaster, which is certainly in many respects was, but also presented an opportunity. And now is this, once we're out of the pandemic, will you stick with the Zoom method, or to a degree keep that, or go back to in person?
That's a great question. We have started picking up some in person. I think it's important to sort of let the client steer that ship and what they are most comfortable with. Yeah. We have definitely started doing a little bit more in-person meetings at this point, as people are getting vaccinated and doors are starting to open back up. I think people miss the sort of that human touch component of it. So we have definitely started picking that back up. But I tell you, there's a lot of people that said, I kind of like this. I like, at the end of an evening, not having to go to another meeting or go to a restaurant or meet people. I can go home, spend 45 minutes on Zoom, have a nice meal, and spend time with my family, and not have to be out away from my kids and away from my spouse. Yeah. So it's definitely going to be a hybrid model, I think, moving forward. Yeah. It's definitely not going to be all one or the other.
But it's opened up another channel of doing things, another way of doing things that you wouldn't have had before. And I find a lot of businesses now have that as well. I came from financial services, and the concept of doing meetings to talk about financial planning was doing it over on Zoom was not popular or even entertained by a lot of people. And now that's second nature. Most clients would prefer that even after the pandemic. So you've got a lot of industries that have totally shifted their whole business model, the way that they've done things. The smart ones have.
This is a great example, because how often, on podcasts, the podcasts were done in person in a room. And now here you and I are talking over Zoom.
Well, it's so funny because I started this podcast when I launched my business, which was February of 2020, before the pandemic. Crazy time you and I were talking
about. Perfect timing, right?
Yeah. So I had that's exactly right. My vision was, okay, well, I'm going to have a podcast studio, which I had in my place in Boston, which was kind of a makeshift one. And my potential guest list was only people that could be within, driving distance of it. Mm-hmm. And then when this happened, I'm like, how am I going to do these things over Zoom? And are people going to like them? And is it going to work as well? And what's the sound going to be like, and all this stuff? And now, I can have guests, which I have, that are on the West Coast, or even, anywhere in the world. So it's kind of, you're absolutely right. It's hit every industry, including podcasts.
That's amazing.
So,
it's, I have a very dear friend who was, he was an entrepreneur for years, and had he was dealing with just international importation and things. And he told me an analogy that his father taught him, and that he teaches his son, and now I talk to my kids about it. And it's about life on the elevator. And maybe you've heard this, but he says, you're thinking of the whole North Star idea. He says, let's say your goal is to be the head of thoracic surgery for Johns Hopkins. Well, if you're looking at a high rise, that ultimate goal is the penthouse. That's where you want to get. And he says to his son, and I've said these now with my boys and my daughters, is, well, as long as you keep making really smart decisions, you do well in school, you study, you work hard, you get to stay on that elevator. The second you make a poor decision, you have to get off the elevator and take the stairs. Maybe you fail a test, maybe you skip school, maybe you do something you shouldn't be doing. Well, doesn't mean you're never going to reach that goal of being the head of thoracic surgery at Johns Hopkins, but it sure is going to take you a hell of a lot longer if you're taking the stairs. So as long as you keep making the right decisions, you can stay on the elevator. And that's what I try to do, and that's what I try to instill in my kids as well, is to do that.
I love that. I love it. So let me go back to one thing I had a question on. You had mentioned spouse. You and your wife, Danny, have partnered. You really have what I think is a great partnership with Duvall and Company, business, obviously, I'm sure life as well in general. Share with us what is that partnership? Why is it valuable? What's most valuable? You shared a couple of examples that I picked up on, but what do you get from that partnership together?
Wow, that's a great question. One of the things I personally get from it is I get to see my wife in her element. I get to see her shine, which is just really, really gratifying. It's so often you see couples and the spouse, your spouse works, but you don't know a lot about their job. You don't know a lot about what they do. And with Duvall and Company, my wife and I are both so ingrained in it that we get to see what each other does. And we also have realized, okay, back to the whole thing of finding people that are, can handle things that you're not so good at, where are your deficiencies? Well, fortunately, my wife is really good at some things. She has her own interior design business in addition to Duvall and Company. So she's got a great eye for design, proportion. She is really good at just the social media component and understanding it. She's really dove in and taught herself and learned a lot. I mean, stuff that to me is just overwhelming when she goes, oh, well, you've got to get on Instagram and you have to post it this time of the day and this many posts and these have to be the hashtags and, no more than, 10,000 hashtags on this. I mean, it is overwhelming. And the mere thought of it makes my brain hurt.
Yeah.
But that's my wife's element. She gets in that and she comes up with ideas with our customer service, with sending pictures. Actually, John, you're a great example. For those who are watching and listening, John had ordered a desk. He ordered a black walnut desk, which is really a beautiful wood. And my wife has said, communicate with your clients. If you find something amazing, let them know. And so I was out what I call slab hunting, looking for amazing pieces of wood. And I found this amazing piece of wood. And John, you remember this. I snapped a picture of this hunk of wood and I sent it to you. And I said, John, I don't know if I'm ever going to see this again. It's this amazing piece of pecan. Any chance you want to switch this up and move away from walnut and go to pecan? And they're just very, very different woods. And that's something that my wife has taught me. Like, don't always just stick with, this person asked for this, do this. She's like, involve the client. They want to be involved. That's why they're coming to us, make it, It's not just about buying a piece of furniture. It's really about an experience.
Yeah.
I learned that from my wife and just watching her grow in this company and take on so much has really been, it's been amazing for me. And more importantly than that, it's amazing for my kids. I love that is the example that my kids see. I want my girls to see a strong woman, a woman that, is in charge and makes decisions and at the same time is just an amazing mom and cuddles in bed at night and reads books to them, that mom really can do all. And I want that to be the example that my girls see. And not only my girls, that my boys see. I want them to see, wow, that's what I want when I get older. I need to find someone like mom that is confident, that knows what she wants. It's really awesome. And then as far as just the work relationship, I will tell you, and this is very difficult, but we make a concerted effort to not talk about Duvall and Company because it can certainly be all consuming at times when we have private time, just the two of us, and we start talking about, well, what are some other directions we can take the company? And we really do make an effort to not do that. We schedule our date nights and we, make a pact up front. We do not talk about Duvall and Company. It's just about hanging out, enjoying our time together, spending time together, and not talking business, which I will tell you is tough.
I would imagine, yeah, because you're passionate. I know, and your story about reaching out to me. From my perspective, I appreciated that so much and I could sense your excitement about this piece, and absolutely thrilled with this desk, and I'm sure I would have been thrilled with the walnut too. But it did say a lot about you, and it said it's not just this turnkey business. It's a business that's built on this passion for what you do. And and that was what struck me that day. And you remember, I was like, hey, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna take your advice from whatever you think that looks like this is great. It's unique, and it really said a lot. So I appreciate that, and I love, you are such a centered person and balanced person. I love the fact, as you're describing your leadership, Danny's leadership, the companies that you run, your partnership together. I mean, I think you got a lot of listeners out there that are like, wow, and I'm sure you've had your downs, but you've had tremendous success, and not just professionally, but it sounds like personally as well. And just, kudos to you. There's not enough people out there like you. So it's great.
Well, thanks. Yeah. And you bring up a good point. I obviously everybody likes to remember the good, but there's definitely, in every company, there's always going to be disagreements and struggles. And, it's really just about, I think, being open-minded and being willing to listen to the other person, because, I'd be lying if I said there weren't definitely some disagreements and some heated discussions at times, but that's sometimes where the best ideas come from.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're at the end of our time here. It's been absolutely phenomenal, and in a minute I'll ask you for any parting advice to the listeners. But if people want to learn more about you, learn more about the company, what can they do? Where can they go?
Sure. Thanks for asking. Yeah, they can go to duvallco.com. It's DUVALLCO.com. That's our website. That'll tell you really just about everything you want to know, as well as you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook or any of the major social media channels. But yeah, we'd love to hear from any of your listeners, and we'd love to work with any of them. And actually, I'm gonna turn the tables on you, John, because I think you do such a great job of interviewing people and having these conversations. I'm wondering, how much do people really know about you? So I said one of my favorite questions to ask in an interview is, what makes you you? So let's turn the tables, everybody. Let's ask John. John, what makes you you? What makes you uniquely you? What has brought you to this point in life?
That's great. That's such a great question. I've been very lucky to be influenced by some great people, and I somehow really became aware of, wow, this whole thing where somebody can say something, do something, it impacts me, and then I have a different attitude and it impacts other people, and then there's this big ripple effect. I think when I was in high school is when I was first kind of connected the dots. I'm like, wow, I didn't know it was leadership. I didn't know really about that. I just knew that's pretty amazing that people can leave you better than they found you. And I just been on this life's mission to do the same, leave people better than I found them. And as I learned to be a better leader and influencer of other people and also myself, I said, you know what? I think I can help other people do the same and become better leaders and influencers. And as we've talked about, it's not just business, it's life in general. So I think that's what makes me people. I love people.
I love that.
Helping them be better.
Leave people better than you found them.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. There is awesome. There's people that do that so well, and I've always admired that. So I hope if I have a fraction of the ability that some of the top people I've seen do that, I'll be happy.
I think you definitely are doing that. That's awesome.
Thank you, my friend. Well, this has been absolutely fantastic. I've loved this. I really, truly have. This for me it's me getting a chance to learn and share some stuff from great leaders. And you have shared so many great nuggets. So we'll have a lot of info in the show notes and everything, and people can reach out to you. We'll put the links in there and stuff like that. And I'll put the pictures of this desk because I know a lot of people are going to be wondering what it looks like. So they'll be
awesome.
Excited. So excellent. Great. Well, thanks again, David. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This has been another episode of Tomorrow's Leader. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, all that kind of good stuff. Go down below. Give a 5-star review, of course. Greatly appreciate your reviews, as well as your suggestions for future guests and also future topics. In the meantime, have a great one. Thanks, everybody. Take care. All right, tomorrow's leaders. So this is the desk that I mentioned that David Duvall made for me. Look at this thing. Whoa. This is a piece of artwork. Love it. I mean, just you get up close and you look at all the design, or I don't even know what you call that. It's just incredible. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So highly recommend Duvall & Company. If you have an interest, see all that dog here. Wow, that's not good. If you have an interest in a desk, it is fantastic. Thank you, Duvall & Company.